You know what, go to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen.
Yeah.
And it should say stop video, and I bet it's got a line through it, and if you click it, it'll open it up.
Oh, stop video. Is it there? No.
Maybe there's are you on a laptop?
No. Kids' room on their,
Is there a little slide over the camera? I did that with my work computer the other day. I couldn't figure out why it wasn't showing up.
Oh, there we go. Well, at least they listen to me. That's a good thing. I'm like, don't leave your camera on in your bedroom.
So we're waiting on, it looks like we're waiting on, is Bill here? Bill's here. Scott's here. Yeah, I'm here. Okay. Okay. Looks like we're good to go then. Megan, does that look like everybody? I'm looking through the agenda. Okay.
Is Amy Dagenhart here? Okay.
To record, Madigan, do I need to hit this record button or
It should automatically start, but if you paused it, it should, then I would hit the record.
Okay. Okay, then I'll hit the, it's not
Okay.
on the record now, so I'll hit that button. Okay. All right, I think we're ready to go. So I'm going to hit this record button and then we'll get started. Cool. Cool. All right, welcome everyone. This is a meeting of the Board of Education held virtually in accordance with the Governor's Executive Order due to health and safety concerns associated with COVID-19. Notice of this public meeting is provided on the district's website along with the links for live streaming and public comments. Only those individuals who have submitted the online form for public comments will be called upon during audience comments. Find this information on our website, waterford.k12.mi.us. The meeting is now called to order. Pledge of Allegiance, everybody. Do we stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call, Secretary Petrucia.
I believe we're missing Member Holmes is all. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Seeing no changes, the agenda is approved as presented. So now we're going to move on to audience comments. Megan, to find those, if there were any, would it be under this Q&A folder?
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Yep.
Go ahead and, since we did not receive any online, you can go ahead and ask anybody who might want to speak to hit the raise hand button, and you can identify them.
Okay, among our 10 attendees, if anyone would like to address the board, if you could please raise your hand virtually, there should be an option for you to do so. I'm just going to give everyone a second here, make sure they can find it. Again, if any of our attendees would like to address the board, please raise your hand virtually. Audience comments this evening. So what we're going to do now is move on to agenda item number 6, our consent agenda. Secretary Petrucia.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
The motion has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signify by saying yay.
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 Okay, and that means anyone not in favor? Okay. 6-0. All right. Agenda item number 7, financial statement. Treasurer Sutherland.
Yes, the board is in receipt of the statement of revenues and expenditures ending February of 2020.
Excellent, thank you. Support staff reports, Secretary Petrucia.
The board is in receipt of the support staff report ended February 2020.
Very good, thank you. Okay, moving on now to agenda item number 9, on response to COVID-19, and we're going to hand it off to Superintendent Lidberg.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate this virtual meeting. The first thing I want to do is I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk directly to our families and our class of 2020. As I shared in a video to all of our community stakeholders a few days ago, that we are thinking of you. I know that I've talked with both high school principals, and I know that Assistant Superintendent Lisa Aldridge is also doing that, and we're thinking of you, and this is certainly not the way we wanted to end the school year, but make no doubt about it that we will be working, as I said, with your teachers and class presidents and activity directors to find ways to celebrate you and to recognize you. So I wanted to make sure we get a shout out to our senior class this evening. Also want to point out, talked with many of our administrators last 5 to 7 days, and our teachers, and even some families, and I just want to report the strength of Waterford School District through this very trying time is indeed positive and strong. I know that the cabinet and I, we've been meeting and talking multiple times a day to get in front of any issues, to tackle challenges, and to find any opportunities that we have to close the gap. We're continuing to do that. As recent as today, we spoke this morning, we met virtually this morning, and then met again after the governor's announcement. And in just a few minutes, Assistant Superintendent Lisa Eldridge will be able to talk about some of those adjustments we're making. We do not have a definite plan yet. We do have the advantage of going into spring break next week, but we will be making some adjustments. But the work that's been going on has been positive. I've had that report from teachers. So proud of our teachers reaching out to so many of our families and students. We're getting notes from parents talking about how strong those connections have been. And we know that there are some that aren't. So we're going to be looking to close the gap in on that. So just so proud of our Waterford School District team. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Lisa Eldridge to talk about the most important thing, the teaching and learning, and know that no matter what we do, it will not be the same as face-to-face with our students, but keeping the social distancing and, quite honestly, just following the executive order that's been put down by the governor, we're going to continue to make those adjustments and make those connections. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Lisa. She'll give us some reports. We'll be open for some questions, and Lisa, it's all yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, as you can imagine, the last 3 weeks have been unique, to say the least. As soon as one order is implemented and we think we're on the road to getting there, another comes to pass. So I want to start with sharing what we have been doing, because I think it's pretty unique, and I think that our teachers and our CIA department deserve a huge accolade for all the work they've been doing. When the original guidance from the MD came out, when we all thought this was going to be 3 weeks and done, it called for us to provide supplemental and enrichment activities for students where appropriate. And our teachers ran with that. We trained all of our secondary teachers who were not yet trained in using Google Classroom. We have helped and supported them in implementing that, as well as other venues. A lot of teachers are using a lot of different things. They're using our online vendors who have opened generously a lot of their sites up to us for free, and they have used their own ingenuity and made connections with students, provided activities and learning opportunities for them, and connected with them on a personal level too, so that we're making sure that they're doing okay and that their families are okay. They use email and MyStar where they need to. They text with students, whatever method they need to do that will meet the student where they're at. They are reporting a decent rate of return on that. Not all students are participating, but a lot are, and those that are fully engaged. As you can imagine, our AP students are very engaged in what's going on. I don't know if you had heard that AP has decided to allow them the opportunity to test online. So we've made that available to our students and are working through that process as well. Middle school teachers are also using Google Classroom. They're having Google Meets as well. And in addition, our district had already purchased for every middle school student the Edgenuity program, which aligns with NWEA and provides students practice in ELA and math. And so hundreds of them have logged on. We can see that. They've logged on, they're using the program, so that's really encouraging as well, in addition to what teachers are providing them within their Google Classrooms. And via, again, text, via email, via Blackboard or MyStar. Elementary teachers, some are using Google Classroom, some are using Weebly if that's something they've used already, Dojo, Remind, again, texting, calling. We're making sure we're touching base with all kids in one way or another, or making that attempt. And they've been encouraging students to do all sorts of unique and fun activities. In addition, a calendar has been going out from the district with activities that don't require a device, because we know that some students don't. Teachers are also where they can get a hold of families, providing activities and ideas for them as well. A thank you goes to two of our vendors, Dreambox Math and Lexia for ELA. They have opened their site to all of our students, although we only had limited licenses prior to the shutdown. So thank you to them, because a lot of students have been able to work through that. A really fun thing that we've done, the CI department has kind of taken charge of, is what we call swaps. You may have seen it on our Facebook page. Today we posted a picture of today's swap where there were 70 teachers in attendance. Today we had two swaps. Both had high attendance. That one had 70, but we're averaging about 90 teachers joining us, and they're different folks. And they have different needs, and if we know someone has a special skill, they're sharing that skill with their colleagues to say, hey, this is what's working for me. Here's how you might use this extension to Google Classrooms to reach these students. So it's been really fun to have them be a part of that and share not just academic things, but we want to keep in touch with our teachers too and make sure they're doing okay. Because this is hard on all of us and they need support too. So it's been a way for them to connect with friends across the district and be there for each other, multiple ways. Let's see, our behavior interventionists, they have been keeping in touch with the students they were working with before and the families, seeing how they're doing, making sure they're handling everything okay. And in addition, our principals are referring additional students to them who they think might need to touch base. We also have our social workers and counselors touching base with families, and special ed they're just rolling along, meeting with their students, talking to parents, keeping updated on everything that's going on. Tina's done a great job with that. So our staff continues to reach out and will continue to reach out on both an academic and instructional level. Both an academic and social emotional level. And as you know today, the game changed a little bit when the governor decided that, barring any major change in our situation with COVID-19, that schools will be closed till the end of the year. It was kind of devastating for us as educators, because that last part of the year is when we really have a chance for closure with our students. Obviously, Scott mentioned the seniors. That's heartbreaking, but we are working on plans to recognize them as well. And so part of the governor's plan is that by April 28th, we need to have a plan in place to move forward with instruction and have it implemented. It needs to be approved by our ISD. Well, we kind of saw that this might be coming, and as you know, today we're bringing to you a proposal to purchase 500 small laptops that we can distribute to families most in need who have the ability to use them. And following your potential approval, we'll be sending out a survey to find out just who those families are and how we can best get them in their hands safely and teach them how to use them. We're working on ways to reach out to every student in the district in one way or another. We have spent our day making some plans. They are not specific and nothing's been approved yet, but we have a good idea of where we want to go. I've already reached out to Open Schools for some support I think they can help us with if they're willing. Hopefully I will hear back from them tomorrow. We've already met with the CIA department and all the principals, and we've got some thoughts in place that will keep our staff safe and yet still reach every child regardless of their situation in terms of a device or not. Let's see what else. So over the next week, we're going to continue to plan. My hope is that we don't have to wait till April 28th. I would like to implement this by the 20th at the latest. And so we're working towards that goal. So much depends on the information Open Schools shares. They have a template for us. It is not available for us yet. So as soon as we get that information from them, I can start working with my team on that, and we can try our best to make it happen prior to the 28th. I think that's too late to wait. In the interim, though, we will continue doing what we're doing. We'll continue providing opportunities and activities for students and touching base with them, making sure they're okay. I think it's important to note that we're really trying hard to make sure that as we work through this, we're taking care of our families, but we're also taking care of our staff and their families. Not a day goes by that I don't get a text or an email from a staff member who has either had somebody in their family fall ill with the virus or pass away from the virus. So we are a big district, and so I hear a lot of that every day, and our hearts go out to them. And so it's a balance. We want to keep them safe, and we want to make sure our students are safe first and foremost, and then we want to make sure we're instructing them in the best way possible. So we are working on that. What I'm hoping we can get from our stakeholders in the community is patience as we get our plan together based on the governor's recommendations. And once we have it together, we're hoping that we can have a commitment that they will encourage their students to maintain their academics and work hard at home to make sure they keep up with what they need to do. I know it's kind of long, but.
No, that's great. Superintendent Lindberg, did you want to?
Yes, I just wanted to say, so I had a late call with the superintendent group, and I do believe we'll be able to start that sooner than later when our team's ready. We did talk about a template. But again, I want to say before we transition, unless there are questions for Lisa, we'll open that up. The curriculum department and Lisa and her team have done a fantastic job. We have, I think, been above what many districts are doing, and that is because of the just the passion and this team moving things forward. And we got things going pretty quickly, and we're going to continue to make those modifications. So just great big kudos to this team and our principals as well, leading this to the building level. Were there any questions for Lisa?
I have a question or comment briefly. So I want to applaud you, Lisa, and the team. First and foremost, as a parent, not even talking as a school board trustee, but as a parent in the district and the hard work that the teachers are doing. You know, you're hearing stories left and right about the amazing things. And I saw the post today of all the teachers on there. And that's amazing, you know. And it's trying times. It's really a real difficult situation for everybody. And, you know, I appreciate, you know, how you're saying that you're cognizant of the teachers in their lives and their children, because they're holding it is a challenge, for everybody. But I really, I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. I really want you to know that. And I say that as a parent first. I'm really happy with the level of direction I'm getting from my kindergartner, and it's difficult, So one question that I do have, and I had asked Scott about this. So in light of the governor, and she's given us more direction today, and it's changing every day. The packets, I've been getting questions about that, and if that's a plausible thing, I've had quite a few people reach out about they would like to have hard copies, and they don't have printers. And just speaking from my own experience, I think the littler ones in worksheets are very helpful. We've been doing a mix of tablet, printing out worksheets, but we have access to a printer. But I've had several people reach out to me wondering if there's anything that we could put in place, and that's something we think about, because I know you guys are doing a lot of work right now. But if you think about out there, because when I was listening to the governor too, she had mentioned packets. She said, if it's packets, if it's whatever, however it looks like. But to just kind of keep that in the thought process, if that's something we can organize.
Actually, we have talked about that. We talked about it today, and we are problem-solving ways that we can make that happen virtually, and then have it be printed. That was one of the things I reached out to Oakland Schools about. What we don't want to do is put any of our staff members in danger. But we're thinking, now that we're talking 9 weeks and not 3, it's a whole different ballgame.
Right.
And so we are looking at that and how we can do that virtually, and then have it printed and work through that method. And we've got all sorts of ideas in the back. I hate to say too much because I don't know where we're going to land, but we are trying very hard to make that happen. And balance it with safety, because we get that 9 weeks is a very different thing than 3 weeks of enhancement activities. It's a whole new game. So we do see that, we're working through it, and I appreciate you bringing it up to the forefront.
Other questions for Lisa?
I don't know if it's, I'm just going to say something because I feel like I have to. I understand. Scott's laughing at me because he knows I never hesitate to say what I think. I have to say that while I understand the purpose and I understand we have to keep ourselves safe, this entire plan, though, creates a system of inequity in our state. It's troubling to me that I hear of Oakland County districts that are paying $50,000 and $60,000 to buy internet access for families, and we can't do that. We don't have that money. And so we are creating a system of inequity in this, and I don't think there's any way of getting around that. And it kind of breaks my heart a little bit, but we will rise to the challenge, as we always do, and we will make this the best it can be for every single one of our students.
Anything else for Lisa?
I have a question. For the internet access, I believe that the library has it in it, and I believe it goes out, extends outside the wall, so you would be able to go into the parking lot. What about our schools? Do our schools, how far out does the internet leak out into the parking lot for someone to use?
Not far. Okay. What we are doing, what the tech department is doing, is they've been driving around because, Comcast, Verizon, a lot of them have opened their hotspots publicly. And so they are investigating to see which hotspots are working okay, which aren't, where it's sketchy, where it's spotty. We're not getting great results. But we also do know that a lot of those companies are offering free internet to parents. So if somebody doesn't have internet, one of our questions on our survey will be, if you don't have a device and we give one to you, are you willing, committing to getting the internet that you need to use the device? Because if we can't get that commitment, it's a wasted device. So there's a lot to consider, and we certainly don't have enough devices to give to every child that needs one in our district. The interesting thing is we're also finding, as parents are working from home, that they need the device during the day. And so a lot of our teachers are dealing with student questions and issues in the evening because that's the time they have to work on that. So again, I just can't I just can't say enough positives about our staff and how they are just there for their kids, no matter what time, no matter what.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Member Torres said. It's, I feel like the seat where I'm sitting right now has been an extension of the CIA office itself. I've been able to listen, and it's so incredible. So kudos to you and Carly and Darren and the whole team. So, any other questions for Lisa before we move on? Okay. All right, thank you. So we're going to move on now to agenda item number 10, our superintendent's recommendations.
We still got a couple more.
Sorry, Scott.
Yeah, we got a couple. So we can move on to communications. So wanted to, we'll have Kelly do something on communications, and then we're going to have Bill. But I want to talk about communications because, you know, I think back almost 12 months ago when I was interviewing with so many of you, that we talked about the importance of getting our story out. And then as we brought Kelly on board, that was also something that we were looking for in her position, and she certainly is talking about that. So we are working throughout the day. We're always talking, how do we get our story out? And so I want Kelly to talk a little bit about how we've been doing that, some things that we're looking at now that we're going to be in this mode of operation for the next 9 weeks. And certainly we're going to be open for questions. And as I call our administrators, our families, and teachers, one of my questions is, after I ask them, how are they doing? How is their family? How are they connecting with kids? That type of thing. How can we communicate better? How can we close any gap, any misunderstanding that's going on out there? So we're continuing to ask the questions so we get in front of anything that we're missing. But I'll turn it over to Kelly and have her talk a little bit about what we've been doing and what is probably coming up next.
All right, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you. So, long story short, communication looks a lot different right now. Our students are used to communicating with their teachers and people throughout their building every day, constant communication with parents, and that looks very different right now. So we're keeping that in mind as we move forward, really trying to focus on using all the different levels that we can. So that means sometimes it's Blackboard Connect, other times it's the website, Channel 22, and our social media channels. Many times we are actually utilizing all of those. So some people may see repeats, but we would much rather them see the information twice versus not at all. Right now our communication is broken into a couple different sections. First is district updates. With district updates, we are making sure that we're getting out all the most important information, obviously today with the decision from the governor. Since last we've met, we have had 2 superintendent videos. The first one was in his office, the second one at home for obvious reasons. We're all doing our best to stay at home. And I think it's important for everyone to just hear what our superintendent has to say, to know that him and his team are constantly working. It's just nice to be able to check in. That is something that we do intend to keep going throughout this time on a regular basis. Sometimes there will be big updates, sometimes they will be small, just making sure that we are in their minds because they are certainly in ours. In addition to that, we have been sending out messages via Blackboard and making sure that we're reaching out to our key communicators as well. It's very important for those who don't have students in our schools to know what we're up to, what we're doing, and how we're supporting our families. So that's everyone from our local leaders to some of our leaders up in Lansing. All just to make sure they hear what we're doing, how we're helping, and maybe sometimes come back to us and say how they might be able to help us. The next step is curriculum. I know Lisa really got into a lot of those details, but we are working to make sure that information is going out again on all levels that we have. If you have been following our Facebook page, there was a list compiled of all of these fantastic opportunities that different organizations and different websites have opened up their airwaves, for lack of a better word, to bring virtual learning to our kids. So if kids are into the zoo, there's options to check out one of the animals. And if they're into artistry, then they can learn how to draw their favorite character out of a book. But just different ways, I know personally with my kids, to keep them family engaged is tough, especially when the video games are right around the corner. So trying to find ways to keep them engaged, keeping that information pumping through our social media airwaves is important. We just recently sent out the curriculum calendar, which was a way for students to work on different things without having to be in front of a computer or having a worksheet. Sometimes it's helping to cook a meal or going on a scavenger hunt, but again, just making sure we're extending that. In addition to making sure we are filling up the plates of all these different opportunities, we're also making sure we are engaging in this program so hard, making sure we show the SWAT meet today, and to just take a second, because the minute we post and things do out there, people are flooding our Facebook pages, our other social media, just thanking our teachers and the CIA department, all of them working so hard to make this happen. This is all new. So we're all in it together, and we are trying to promote that piece as well. Next is the food distribution. Without a doubt, we have been popping that one through, again, on two different angles. The angle of making sure our families know the opportunities that they have both through us and through other organizations, to make sure that no one's going hungry while they're away from us. But on the other side, we have to make sure that we are giving all of the much needed kudos to the volunteers and the food nutrition staff. What they have been doing is remarkable. I mean, it's got to be above 30,000 at this point, or no, I'm sorry, over 60,000. And tomorrow there's more distribution. So in that right there, if you have not had a chance yet, the Oakland Press did an article on one of our food service workers, and it is outstanding. She was remarkable. I did not coach her in anything. I just kind of sat there and listened and just smiled from ear to ear because she loves her job, she loves her kids, and she was the perfect example of what makes Waterford so great. So if you haven't had a chance, be sure to check it out. And then finally, the last thing is community building. Our district has amazing staff members making connections all the time, and relationship building is so important, and I think that is going to be one of the hardest pieces to this puzzle. We can all still work on our math and our science and whatever it's going to be, but those relationships are so key to our kids and to our staff members. And so our efforts to try to keep that community process and that feeling, we've been posting out videos from our buildings that are just fantastic. I think we have 2 elementaries so far, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more as we progress through these weeks. We also are working towards Spirit Week. The high school kids have a little bit of I wouldn't say edgier, but TikTok and things that high school kids might do. So they'll have their own version of a Spirit Week, but then we have our coalition put together a Spirit Week for the elementary students. And, parents will be able to submit pictures of their kids participating. It's just, we like to be together. We don't want to be apart, so how can we still kind of do things together? So this will be evolving, but that's kind of the long and short of it.
Kelly, can you speak to, I didn't talk about it before, but we're talking about putting something on the website. We like the idea of a button, but I don't know if it'll work. Ask WSD, Ask Waterford School District. So again, another opportunity to gain feedback and questions that if we're missing at any level. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and thank you. I had notes and I still completely forgot that too. I got away from it. But we actually have put a button in the upper right-hand corner of our website right now. It says Ask WSD. And essentially it takes you to a form that will alert me anytime anyone has a question. They can ask anonymously or they can put in their contact information. But we have an idea of what the questions are, and especially right now we have a good idea, but there's going to be questions that we might not be thinking of. And so it can also help us figure out which questions are our top priority. So having that out there, we'll be sending out a note tomorrow in much more detail to our families and our community, and we'll be promoting that opportunity is there. It'll be there as long as it needs to be, even after we get back to work in September and we're all back in the buildings. We can keep that there, but it's just an opportunity to have them reach out. It's a two-way street. We want to hear what they want to know about. So that is out there and ready. And if you have a question, you can even submit it there. But I'll get alerts and then we'll answer them as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Kelly. Questions for Kelly?
I have a
question about the Q&A, or the question tab. So if somebody fills out a question on there, do they get a direct response back, or how does that work?
That will actually depend. If the individual chooses to put their information into the areas for email and name, we would be able to answer them directly. However, questions, what I envision is an FAQ. Essentially having all those frequently asked questions, a document that lives on our website, and as those questions are coming out, that would be available, as well as putting things out there. When we have a question that comes up time and time again, putting it onto social media, sending it out in Blackboard, saying, hey, we've heard a lot of people wondering about this, here's our answer. So we will be doing it both large scale and small. But again, only if they give us their contact information, we'll be able to reach out directly to them.
And what's the turnover time on that? Is it days, weeks, or what?
Well, I want to turn things over as quickly as possible. Some of those, and the way that the form is put together is that we will answer as quickly as possible. I do not like to overpromise and underdeliver. But my hope is to get things turned around in a 24 to 48-hour fashion when it is possible. When there are still things that are coming through the works. If someone said today, what's going to happen with my elementary students' curriculum, I would be able to at least respond and say, we are working on that, and that's coming together. But if it's quick questions like, is the school year really over? Well, I can answer that one. Well, it's over-ish. It's over in the sense of we're not in the buildings, but we will still be learning and we'll still be working together. So it'll be fluid, but it will be a top priority for me to make sure that we're updating that as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kelly before we move on to Bill?
I don't have a question so much as a comment. I just wanted to echo, John Paul, your comments relative to the curriculum piece and kind of extend those exact same comments to you, Kelly, and to your department. I've seen Facebook, Instagram. I've seen the videos that Donaldson did, and I've talked to I don't know how many teachers and staff members over the last 3 weeks, and the fact that our story is out there and that we're not on the defense, we're on the offense always. I mean, people are always like, oh my gosh, you're doing so great, you're doing so great. So much incredible feedback rather than having to defend and we're way out in front of things, and it's an indication of the just extraordinary work that's going on, Kelly, with you and with the entire cabinet, the entire administrative team, all of our teachers, all of our staff members, food service, everyone is just in lockstep in making sure that we do what's best for kids, and it's really a sight to behold, and I just wanted to thank all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for Kelly? Okay, so we've got a business services update, and we're going to have 3 topics here. The first one is the revised budget. So, we've had a chance this week to take a look at what some of those numbers are looking like for this year. We don't know next year, but I want to assure the board and really the community who's tuning in for this that we're looking at this and we're making plans. We have to come out as strong, if not stronger, on the other side of this. We know our kids will have missed this school, so we need to make sure we have the finances and the resources in place to do the job we're expected to do here in Waterford. So we've been looking at that. So Bill and Amy will talk a little bit about where we're at on our revised budget. We probably will be starting to look at what could this look like for next year. Of course, we don't know. I've talked with a couple of our representatives. I've got some idea, but you know what? They don't know either. And we're really just taking this a day at a time. But we will have a plan, and we are looking at some of the options that we have. So that'll be the first thing, the revised budget. The other thing is with moving the bond, we have some things that we have to bring to the board in the next 2 meetings. And so this is for information for you tonight, for you to ask questions. We want to be transparent in that. We got this information, I think it was last Friday, so we knew then at that point we were going to have a board meeting. I said, let's talk about it in an open board meeting, Bill. And so they're going to talk about some of those pieces for the bond proposition. And then lastly, and again, great recognition for our food and nutrition services, some of the numbers and some of the story behind what's been going on there for our community the last few weeks. So I'll turn it over to to Bill Holbrook, Assistant Superintendent.
All right, thank you, Scott. I'm going to see if I can share the screen.
Lisa, did you say you didn't know pets were allowed at this meeting, right?
All right, can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Well, okay, great. As Scott said, it's kind of, oh, wait a minute, let me start here. There we go. So here's the discussion items that Scott mentioned. We're going to go over the revised budget, the bond proposition, and then if you guys could endure a little bit of time with me to brag about all the good work out of the food service department, because they've been really knocking out of the park. So let's get going. Let's talk about the revised budget. Remember when we started in this year, and Amy, you can pipe in at any time, and then also for the viewing public, if they can't see this, it is online. You can go to our website and pull this up as well. So when we started out the fiscal year, our original budget had $100 per student increase. We actually got $237. So the changes from original budget to revised budget is $137 per student increase. It's just a little bit more than 1.1 million. Our enrollment was great. We come in 140 better than expected. So that's another 1.1 million. And then as part of the governor's plan, we had what's called Special Education 51F, just an additional funding for cost structures that we have in special ed, which gave us another $377,000. And then there was some minor back and forth with some other categoricals that were around $26,000. But we did have some reductions. We do get $25 per student. So for a high school student, that was eliminated. So that cost us almost $70,000. And then a computer adaptive test support, another just over $70,000. And when I go through this, you can see in the revenue, and then when I get to the expenditure, you can see I've separated it between what would be a normal update between original budget and revised budget, but also I've separated it in a way to look at what the estimated shutdown impact is on our budget. So preschool tuition, we have three components to preschool. It's Head Start, GSRP, and tuition based. So the tuition will be going down for the last quarter of the 3 months, around $75,000. Additionally, food service contribution. Food service contributes about $300,000. I'm estimating there might be a dip of $150,000 contribution due to the shutdown. However, with the meals and everything we're producing, I'm just being very conservative in this. We may have the full contribution anyway, so we might not have this reduction. Facility rentals, the rest of the year has been shut down. Athletics, and then Medicaid. This is the portion of direct Medicaid services that we have for our students. Since the students are out of the classroom, we won't be able to provide those services. So when you add it all together, right around $2.1 million net revenue increase. On the expenditure side, staff wages through negotiations was almost $2.1 million. And then on our bus drivers in the middle, we had our board study session. So in the middle of the year, it was $96,000, almost $100,000 in wage increase. KMS teacher stipends, again, that was mid-year, $50,000. Special education parapro wages, $242,000, and then school and community service department, $48,000. Now, as part of the estimated shutdown on an increase, though, child care has been shut down, so those revenues are going to dip by $323,000. So the general fund will need to transfer that to child care to keep the workers paid. Full and fitness transfer $145,000, and full performing arts center $62,000. However, we do have reductions as part of. Now let's separate that. That's the shutdown. Now let's talk about reductions. When we're talking about reductions, part of negotiations. To start the year, we had the building substitutes, 1 FTE. We eliminated $353,000, almost $354,000 on that. Senior center transfer. The senior center is breaking even. So we had budgeted $100,000 to cover senior center loss. We don't need that anymore because they are breaking even. And then throughout the year, we always have various open positions, so $187,000. Now, with the shutdown, we don't have substitute positions to worry about for the rest of this year. So that's almost $140,000. We won't be using our fuel or maintaining our buses for wear and tear for these last few months. and then the spring season has been canceled, so that's $80,000. So our net expenditures went up just over $2 million. To bring it all together, our revenues 2.1, and then net expenditures are just over $2 million. We have a net surplus of $98,000. Now, to keep in mind, that $98,000 is on top of the fact that we haven't dipped into our contingency. We have $500,000 of contingency within the budget. So that puts us nearly $600,000 to the good for now. And like I said, Amy and I have been very conservative in these estimates. We've been working through these numbers. Things could change, but as of right now, for the rest of the remainder of this year, we're looking pretty secure at this point. So before I go into the bond proposition, are there any questions on the revised budget?
Oh yeah, the amount is $98,727. Back with that, Bill. Just messing with you.
I know. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I just want to point it out that you actually rounded off $98,000. I am just amazed.
Bill, I just have a question a little bit.
Sure.
I know that covers this year, and the situation we're looking at with just all the uncertainty, and we're not having to utilize as much of the money, so we're at $600,000 roughly. Now, I'm thinking conservatively for next year though, because we don't know what's going to happen next year, right? For next year's budget. So your thought process, is it best or is it conservative to kind of carry that over? Or is that what we're expecting to do or hoping to do for next budget year?
Yeah, what we're expecting to do is just basically take the budget we have and roll it over. We're not going to anticipate that there would be any money from Lansing, of course, with the drop-off in economics throughout the state. So we're not going to plan for that anymore. Keep in mind, not that we ever want to use fund balance, but this really puts us in an even better position financially with our fund balance. This could put us in the upper 9.9 to $10 million. So as we work through the original budget for next year, I feel that we're in a pretty good financial situation to weather the storm, depending on how long it goes. That's the unanswered question that we have. So,
thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. I know that this was kind of like a big to-do in the community, but I just want to know if you didn't know this offhand, but when we had to change the hours of the pools and Kettering was shut down, did that benefit the district? Did it do thing that it would do?
I have not analyzed that. Yeah, I haven't analyzed that yet.
Okay.
When we're looking through where we are revenue-wise, just to calculate what we're going to have to do for the rest of the year, we're just using those numbers for now.
Okay.
We're good? All right. So let's go on to the bond. In March, obviously on March 19th, we moved the bond election from May 5th to August 4th. So by doing that, though, we have to update some numbers. And I have some, the next slides will show what sections need to be updated. But that requires us to revise the preliminary qualification with the Department of Treasury. We have to do that at the next meeting. And then on May 7th, we have to certify the bond language. We have to do this in two parts because, one, once we send the preliminary qualification to Treasury, they need 10 days to review it, and then they return it to us. And once they return it to us, then we can certify the bond language. So once that's certified by the board, then on May 12th, prior to May 12th, we have to have that into county elections. Michigan Department of Treasury, they will not allow us to change the amount of the bond proposition. It's at $150 million. We cannot change the project scope described in the bond proposition, but we are required to update the proposal's millage or financial millage information. So, and I have that on another slide here. When we moved the election to August, it obviously put us in a new fiscal year, which obviously changes our millage rates. And that includes our existing bonds and our proposed bonds. So that's why we have to do this in we have to update that section in the preliminary qualification. So when you look at our bond proposition, this area in blue, these numbers have to be updated. As you can see, the millage rates and so forth. Because we're going to be in a new fiscal year, we have a new, we have a new millage assessment that has to be recalculated and going out. So that is the only area we can change for Treasury. And the only other number we are going to change is that $132 million is going down to $131 million due to the fact that we've refinanced our bonds after we had submitted our language to Treasury. So since we refinanced, put us in a better financial position on our outstanding bonds, so we're going to update that number as well, and that's allowed by Treasury. So, any questions on that?
I have a question, Bill.
Sure.
So, when you say that we cannot amend the bond amount, that's because of the window of time that if we potentially attempted to do that, my understanding is there would be a period of time where the Department of Treasury would have to review that, correct? In order for us to start the process, right?
My understanding through Treasury and our legal counsel is they wouldn't allow it. The governor only allowed us to move the election to August under the current bond language. So even if Treasury had more time, I'm not sure that, or we're confident that it wouldn't be allowed to even change that. So it's not even just about the 10 days that they have to review this financial information, but we don't believe they would be allowed in the first place.
So there's no way that we could actually take this back before the Department of Treasury and start back from the beginning as we did before with changing the full amount of the bond?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, let's talk about food service. The process. The very first thing the food service had to do was estimate the number of meals to be served. Obviously, that became very changing as the days wore on. When we started out, our first day, we had just under 1,500 meals served. It grew to over 4,000 meals is what the averages are now. And as you can see, in grand total, in this very short period of time, we're up to over 100,000 meals served. By 1 o'clock tomorrow, that's how many meals that we've produced and given to the community. It's amazing work, and you can see where it's being distributed from. In fact, I'll go over that as well. But before that, in the process, we had to estimate the number of meals. We had to figure out what types of food that we could use to make meals compliant, and still put them into the bags so you could deliver them outside. This isn't the same as soup and mashed potatoes that you put in the carrots and everything that are just laying out for the students to serve themselves through the line. So it's quite a different production method. So we had to change the way the foods that were going to go into it, the product. We had to take an inventory of all of our current product to see what we had available to make it work. We also had to assess our food service site capacity, our kitchens, the kitchen space, the cooler, freezer space, production space. As you're going to see as time goes on, and the concerns and for our staff and volunteers became more. The production sites and the kitchens that we chose became more and more critical because we have to keep our volunteers and staff separated for safety. We also had to consider the volume of vehicles and capacity of the site, and what was the locations for our community. We had to organize the staff and volunteers, analyze staff and volunteer safety, and then analyze our vendor supply chain and option for meals to be served. In the beginning, there were several late nights where Sam and Joy really were in constant contact with vendors to see if they couldn't get this fruit, can they have this fruit? If they couldn't get this vegetable, can they have that vegetable? It was quite an endeavor to get things rolling. But we selected 4 sites to produce the food with distribution to 3 of them. Mason Middle School is a base kitchen. It also supports St. Stephen's Church. We do a certain amount of meals from them, and that was noted in the chart a few slides ago. Our Prairie campus here in Riverside Elementary, and then our other base kitchen is Mott. And at Mott, we do the bus distributions and support Life Point Church. So if you go to our website, you can find out our locations where our buses go, as a community member, and see what we do for food pickup there as well. Then we had to move Knudsen, Kettering, Pierce. We had to take all of that food from those sites because we didn't want that food to perish, and we needed it. We needed it to give our vendors time to gear up for supplying prepackaged products. Then we rolled out a service plan to our community that offered immediate delivery opportunities for food for district children 7 days a week. Each delivered meal includes a breakfast and a lunch. Our first 2 weeks we served food every day, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Friday included Saturday and Sunday meals. Everyday service was due to the lack of cold storage for food, initial supply chain constraints, and adapting to new production techniques. Remember, when we're serving the amount of meals that we're serving, our capacity to store those meals is limited by, our cooler and cooler space. By the third week, though, we served Tuesday meals for Tuesday through Thursday, and Friday meals for Friday through Monday. Same times, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., same sites. We accomplished that by reconfiguring our cold food storage units. If you go near our coolers and freezers, you'll see shelving units that are laid outside that usually are in there, but we had to remove all of those because our packaging is different and our storage needs are quite different. And then more importantly, we obtained 2 semi-trailer refrigeration units run by diesel generators. Those were grant provided. Sam got those on the sites, and we are utilizing them to the full capacity. We're stuffing them full with meal production. So the Tuesday, Friday meal distribution schedule will continue for the near term. We're closed for spring break. This will allow the team to regroup and get set for a possible long run. I need to recognize Sam and her team. She's an outstanding job. Monumental efforts, everybody, the volunteers and the staff, for delivering just those thousands of meals. Again, outstanding work. Can't say it enough. You'll see a common theme in the next few slides about our volunteers and our staff. They've been amazing with producing and serving so much food for the community. Sam and her team have met many challenges, addressed the necessary changes that have had to occur to get products purchased, to get the production out, and just change the way we distribute food. We're receiving several awesome comments from the community for our district's efforts that also include a front page article in the Oakland Press for Dana Potter, which is what we were referring to earlier with Kelly. And then again, special thanks to staff and volunteers. I know John Paul, you were out there for a couple days, afternoons. Joan, amazing work. You've been on the site from 7 in the morning till to the completion from 1 o'clock. From 7 in the morning till almost 2 o'clock every day for almost 3 weeks. It's amazing, and it is much, much appreciated for your efforts. The community, their contributions. Many anonymous people have brought coffee and fast food to the teams across this district. Brody's at Cass and Carter's Plumbing and the Michigan Bread Group, they donated over 1,500 loaves of bread for us to distribute to our families. There's an interesting group, the Uptown Hound Apparel. What they normally do is they normally produce create coats, winter coats for dogs. And what they did is they've taken on making homemade washable masks for our team to wear for protection. As you know, we don't need the N95 masks to be secure on our sites, but we do have our staff wearing protection now, and this group produced 90 of them, and it's just wonderful that they did this. Sam was able to get a donation by the U.S. dairy industry of $12,000 worth of what we call cow coolers. They're square coolers that we're going to have throughout the district once we get rolling again with our students in the class and so forth. But there's so many more people to thank and recognize, and I would do that in the future updates, but I want to recognize a few for their outstanding efforts. And I'd like to show some pictures here. As you see in the upper left corner, there's Dana in the front page article in the Oakland Press. The program that we work under is the Meet Up and Eat Up. You can see in the upper right corner all of the packages ready to go, all the meals almost ready to be put, the finished product put into boxes and then set into the coolers. You can see the team at Riverside. You can see more bags at Prairie. You can see the truck that Sam was able to secure one of the trucks for our refrigeration units outside. And then in the lower right corner, those are the masks. They're all different and so forth. It's the fabrics in stock that the organization had, and it's just wonderful what they did for us. This one just more of the production teams. You can see the Mason team in the middle at the top. You can see all of the bags and so forth that they've stuffed. You can see what we did is the volume got so heavy that we ended up starting 2 lanes at Mason to speed up the process to get people through, get the meals through. The thank you, these are some of the notes that we're getting. It's just wonderful, and you just see box of Cheerios being held by staff, loading up. Everybody was coming in with their trucks, whatever it took to get meals from different distribution sites to our new, our 4 sites. And then you can just see the team in the bottom right corner at Mason. Now, you can see some people aren't wearing masks. This was very early on. Our mandates have changed quite dramatically. As the confirmed cases have gone up, we are requiring masks, gloves, possibly safety glasses if you want them, distancing. These are some of the concerns. If we have to continue with the meal production and then the count continues to rise, making sure that the distancing, that we create a safe environment for everybody to work. We also need to be concerned about staff and volunteer fatigue. Volume of meals produced are increasing with limited staff and volunteers to maintain this demand. We are serving over 20,000 meals for 4 days and 18,000 meals for the 3 days. So we're at the 40,000 meal per week mark. We are really up there with the largest districts in the state of Michigan of producing food and delivering it to our community. And it is, these are the things we just need to be cognizant of, that it is quite a challenge for our team. They've rose to the challenge. They're doing an outstanding job. But I want to make sure that everybody's, that there are things to to have, our eye on. Also, the governor closing schools, that might change this food program. We don't know at this time, but, our food offerings and distribution requirements may change. This isn't unique, but it's certainly, it is amplified by the exorbitant quantity of meals being served. We are, with our ISD and their nutrition leaders across the state, they are letting everybody know at the state level of what challenges everybody is facing. So, do you have any questions on that?
I have a comment. I just want to congratulate everybody for their hard work, and Sam, she's really doing an amazing job. I mean, the amount of logistics that goes into providing those meals is just, it's military-like. It's amazing. And the volunteers that are out there, putting themselves at risk, and it sounds like we're minimizing some of that, but the fact that they want to make sure that kids are being fed, I think that's a pretty powerful thing. And I think that's one of the things that I heard the most as a school board trustee from people when this all happened. It was pretty much equal with how is the curriculum going to look and how are these kids going to be fed, right? And we rose right to the occasion right away. So, and I just wanted to go back, my comment on that, and I have a comment on the bond as well. I didn't realize that was the last slide on that. One of my concerns is, and this is just my comment, proceeding forward with a $150 million ask, and I'm afraid of what August is going to look like. 6.6 million people filed for unemployment this week alone. People are going to be in a really tough situation, very difficult. We need this money. We need this bond to pass. We need it to provide, the maintenance, the needed maintenance and the safety of our buildings, the roofs, the buses, all that bit. I would implore this board to really think this through, because this is a lot of money to ask at a time where people in our community may be out of work. They may be unemployed. 6.6 million people, many of those people live here in Waterford. I saw General Motors, Fiat, 80% of their wages they're getting. So it's really going to be a difficult situation. And the stimulus checks that people are going to be getting, most people are going to be putting that in their savings account because they're not quite sure what's going to be happening. So I don't want us to be in a situation, and a lot has changed. This monkey wrench has been thrown into our world over the past few weeks, really, and what things looked like 3 weeks ago are completely different now. And I worry that we put ourselves in a position where we're asking too much, and people look at it as though every dollar counts right now. So I would like us to give it some thought, and you all know how I feel, and so does Scott, because I've talked about it. That we reconsider that amount that we're asking for, because I don't want to put us on a disastrous path where we now start looking at our general fund dollars to have to cover what we would normally spend for a bond because we don't pass the bond. Just my thought.
If we don't, if we consider changing the amount, we'll have to cancel the August election.
Still go in November?
I doubt we can, in the timeline, make it to November. We would have to reach out to Treasury we have till really, well, nobody really knows if you can get into Treasury or not. We would have to, you have 180 days before the election, so that would be November 3rd. You'd have to back up 180 days, that puts you at May 3rd, roughly. And it's already April, and we don't know what the decision of the board's going to be until the 16th. If we call Treasury, remember when we called Treasury in October, it took till December to actually get a slot available to even discuss the project with them. We have no idea if Treasury is even available. And then it'd be whole other discussion if November is even something that the board would want to consider. But the timeline probably isn't going to be met for November either.
Bill, I got a little issue with that though, because I know that we didn't go. My understanding is we didn't approach Treasury until November because I had a meeting with Scott. And I even went back and looked at the date. It was, I believe, November 1st when this was first talked about. So, if we're talking all of November, December, January,
go ahead.
And so what I'm saying is that I feel like if that's where it goes, I would like to hear more, because I hear you're kind of saying I don't even know if that's, or it could be if Treasury's even open, kind of thing. If that's some route, I just don't want us to be in a situation where now we don't know where we're headed, and in April, in 2 weeks we have to vote on this, and then we're thinking about it, right? I always like to have a plan A, plan B, and a plan C in place. So I would just like us to think ahead, because I really fear, the idea, my issue from the beginning before was not necessarily the bond, it was, the cost of the election. Now we've moved it to a cost-free election, but a lot has changed since then. Our world has been turned upside down. We went from the lowest unemployment rate in American history to the highest in the matter of 30 days. I feel, I know Joan was out there too. I was out there passing out those lunches. I'm here and I just got laid off. I'm going to get laid off. They cut me down to 80%, of what I was making. People are worried. People are very worried. I'll say, particularly here in Waterford. I just would like us to think ahead. I'm fearful of moving forward with the August election, $150 million request, and that doesn't pass. Then we're up.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Well, I guess my question would be, before we start making all these other plans and hearing from the board, though, as far as my question would be, if, in understanding what your point is about August, what would change by November?
Well, I guess the argument could be that we could lower the amount. That's my whole argument. The premise of it is that $150 is too much. So what's the bottom line? What's going to get us through? Would it be 90 million? Would it be 70 million? So potentially the amount could change. What we know from election history of bonds is that sometimes when you ask for too much, you don't get it. But sometimes when you ask for less, you do get it. Pontiac's had that happen to them on numerous occasions, where they asked for $100 million, and then it didn't pass, and then less than a year later they asked for $60 million and they got it. So I think what would change would be the amount that we're asking for and how much more digestible people would think that would be to their income.
Well, on the 100 million, or the changing it to 100 million would not change anything, because we don't sell the other 45 to 50 million until 2026. So it wouldn't change their economic situation. Now, it might, as you say, 150 million might be a large amount, to them to see it. However, it wouldn't change their economic situation for the calculation on it. Just so you're aware.
I get that. I completely get that. I'm talking about image, right? I'm talking about, it's all about perception in elections, right? When you ask for 150 million, that sounds like a lot. When you ask, if I say, hey, let me get 80 million, or if I'm asking for 150 and say, no, I'm going to ask you for 80, it sounds better. And you know as much as I do that these bonds, this is why we have a campaign for people who run for office or when we have elections. It's all dependent upon, how it's perceived to the community. I fear that people look at it and say, these people aren't living in reality. Do they think that I'm not unemployed, or that I'm behind on my mortgage, or I'm exercising my 90-day deferment on my mortgage payment? So I think people in our community believe in the schools. We passed these bonds before. And that's why I think they would support something smaller. But I think, I get what you're saying. It doesn't hit them in the pocketbook necessarily right away. But it's the same thing when we talked about where it's a non-tax increase versus now a tax increase, if that's how we frame it. It's all about that perception of what people think and when they see. And I think people are going to be supportive of the schools, but they also have to, and we're all doing it right now, look at our bank account and our pocketbook and what we can afford.
Just for clarification, I just want to make sure that when I'm not sure when you and Scott met about this, I'm going back to a couple comments back, but I sent out an invite on October 24th for us to plan for meeting with Treasury just to save a date. So we were back in October saving a date with Treasury. So it does take a lot of time to get in their queue. I don't know who's going in November. They may have more time. I don't know any of that right now because this is a different plan that I don't even know if the board supports it. So,
well, I'm just one board member, and so my thought is that when I heard you say you don't know if the Treasury's open, you don't know if there's going to be enough time, that's not a no. That's like there's still potential. So my thought is, does it hurt to think of having a plan B in place? But I'm one board member. You got to have direction from the board.
Well, you're also asking to revise all of the projects. Which projects, is the board suggesting that we knock out of the 150 million? We'd need to know. We usually make the recommendations on that, but I know I would need to have more input.
Well, maybe this requires a deeper meeting then, maybe a special meeting or something to that effect, where people can give it some thought. Because you're raising good questions.
I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. John Paul, I agree with you. We are in unprecedented times. Our economy has plummeted. That nobody can argue that that we have. Our world is a very different place than it was even a month ago. I also know that we have to have a long view for our district. We really have to be looking out for we are stewards, not for when we're on the board, but for the next board and the board after that and the board after that. I recognize that you don't think it's a good idea, but I think we have to let our community decide. Given that we've gone to all this work and we've gone through Treasury and we have the proposal out there, I don't think I think our community has to decide. And will they vote it down? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know what that will be. But if they do vote it down, then we would have to regroup and say, because we don't know what August is going to look like any more than we know what November is going to look like at this time. Nobody does. We truly do not know. And so because we've already done the legwork, we've already invested the money, in the time in terms of, putting this plan in place, I believe it doesn't cost us anything. And if it fails because of things that are beyond our control, and then we go back and say, all right, what do we need to do? So that would be my recommendation. That'd be where I'm at.
And my thought on that is that, I agree, and I think we have the same point of view, is that we're stewards of the future of this district, and not necessarily this board, and if we'll even be here years from now. But the idea is that I want to make sure that if we're moving forward with this, that we're putting ourselves in the best situation possible to actually get it passed, and that it's digestible for people. So I guess we have the same viewpoint on it. It's just how we approach it is different. And if it fails, my concern is what I heard Mr. Ristich say, and several other board members, and we're going into general fund. So now I'm worried about the classroom, and so that's why I raised the concern about it, because the classroom, in the teachers, and all of that, it frightens me that if we have to go pick between the two, we have to keep maintenance in place and building upkeep and those kinds of things. So I think that that's something that I really worry about, and I'm just trying to be as proactive as I can. And like I said, my thought is have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. I mean, that's how I operate. And there's legwork, but we've done a lot of it already, right? So I mean, it's just a matter of changing some of the things and then the timetables. And
I disagree that November is going to be. First of all, we don't know if the economy, the longer this goes on, the worse things are going to be. So I think we have a lot of goodwill in our back pocket right now, especially because our teachers, the curriculum, the work that's being done. I truly believe we will be in a better position in August than we are in November if the data is as it looks like right now. And I know it's a roll of the dice. It absolutely is, but then I think we regroup and say, given where we sit today, we'll know a lot more then. We'll just know a lot more then. And there's nothing wrong with going back out again. And honestly, it would probably be a May election is what we'd probably be looking at if we want to get something to pass. So that's what all the data tells us.
Well, in that kind of situation, though, then we run into having to pay it for the election again, in a May election. And I think
it is a cost of doing business, and I know we disagree on that, John Paul.
Well, yeah, I guess we can agree to disagree, but my thought is that, cost of doing business is one thing, but being frugal with how you're operating is another thing, and that's just been my thing all along. But I think that the main thing to change with that is that if we lowered that amount, I think our ask would be more well received, rather than going for $150 million. I know we need to do work to Stepanski, but we're talking about a $28 million rebuild of childhood early development center, which I completely support. But I also, my thought is we have to be within our means, and we have to be realistic. And the view that it's going to take, we're redoing our elementaries at $6, $7, $8 million a piece, and we're going to completely overhaul Stepanski at $28 million. I know that the building has to be redone, but would it necessarily be, would it be prudent of us to move forward with the $28 million project at a time like this? Thank you.
Just to point out on the cost of the new early childhood center, our buildings, the renovation is not the same price as, we're going to have to add 50% to the size of the current facility. So there's a cost of new construction. So when you put it all together, there's a factor in that.
Yeah, I get it.
I just want to make a comment on this. I would ask that, would it be a problem to ask if we can reduce the amount? This is my issue right now. Right now, we are riding on a high. We got curriculum. We're doing stuff that other people are doing. We're handing out all these meals. It's difficult to say, hey, we just handed out 100,000 meals. Oh, by the way, can you give us $150 million? I just really struggle with that. I think that we have the respect of the community. We've lost it at points in time over the past few years. And I would just hate to lose it again by them saying, oh, they didn't, even consider us, they're just going to pass this through. And we don't know. I mean, everybody got in big trouble last time between 2008 and 2010. I mean, it was wretched. And, you could lose a bunch of students in the fall. We just don't know. I mean, I think that if, this is just my own opinion, that if we approach it with, what do we need now to get us by for a couple of years, to make sure that the roofs aren't leaking, everything's going good, and just push some of the fluff off just to wait to see what happens. We've already earned so much respect from the community. I think that by doing that, then again, that is just my opinion.
Just to be clear with everybody from a legal standpoint, just to be clear from a legal standpoint, we have to scrap the current plan if we go that direction. We cannot change the amount for August. We have to scrap the plan and start all over again.
Yeah, I think we've established that, right? That if we were to lower it, then it would have to be November.
Maybe. I can add in too. It isn't like we're just adding, we want some fluff or we want a new building. Stefanski needs a new roof. And it's going to be $1 million if we have unknown factors. That means probably two. To put $500,000 into a building that needs to be torn down is silly. We need a new structure. Again, to completely rewrite this, John Paul, you've been asking all along. You've been supportive of it, but you have been in front of it to block it at every step. You didn't like the time. Now you don't like the money. I don't fully understand it. I'm speaking, please. It isn't like we're just the administration of, hey, we just need some money. They have a plan. This is what they do. I trust my administration in having a plan of what we need and when we need it. I trust Bill in saying, hey, this is the amount of money we need because this will get us through this many years. As Joan stated, we won't always be here, but our decisions will. We have to make a decision. And we make the decision. Maybe not supported by all, but it was voted on, so that makes it supported by all. It shouldn't be fought at every turn or every corner. We've made a decision as a board to support the decision. We changed the date because it was the right thing to do. It was a little bit of a fight. There's a little bit of a struggle we're going to have with that. But to completely revamp the whole thing, this is a fight that should have started way back last year when we first started talking about it. It's in process. Let's go with it. Let's do what we need to do.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want to be clear that I don't want to adopt this mentality that if you're not with us, you're against us type thing. And I trust administration, but we are elected as board members to speak on behalf of the community and put forth our input. Like I said, I didn't agree with the date, and that was, I am fiscally conservative, and I've always been that way. And so I'm looking at the amount of monies we're spending and how we're spending it. That's just how I am. And when I moved, I didn't like the May election, but I got behind it once it passed. I was actually planning the next week to go to my kid's school to talk to the PTA about the bond. Then we moved the date. A lot's happened since then, and I don't want you to think I'm trying to fight it every corner, but I have good reason, and in this instance, it is the fact that we are taking $150 million to the community at a very, very difficult time. This is the biggest ask we've ever done. And then, in a tribute to that, I get the idea of the building and $1 million on a new roof, and I know there's other things that need to be done to it, and if it needs to be torn down, but $28 million is not, it's not frugal. I mean, it's not. I'm looking at the minimum here, and what can we do to sustain? And that's just that we have a different viewpoint on that. But I just want to, reiterate the fact that please don't assert anybody or think. I'll say that just because I question the idea that I'm against you or administration. That's not the case. I have to voice my opinion because that's what I was elected to do here. Thank you.
I do want to add though that we have voted on this. We did move the date, and we all agreed and voted on that. It is our community's decision. It is our community's decision whether they approve what we have that we've already done and approved. And what Bill needs to do is modify just because we're in a new fiscal year as a result of us changing it. So it does feel a little bit like we're starting all over, and I believe this is our community's decision. What we have done is put it out to our community to decide. Nothing about our plan. I understand what you're saying, John Paul, I do, and I understand that the world is a very different place, and I'm not saying this to be argumentative. I'm just saying we have all already voted on this plan. We have voted on this fund, and yes, things changed, but it's now up to our community to say, now's not a good time. It's not really, I don't think it's our place until it gets voted down, and then we say, if it gets voted down, and then we say, all right, we heard you, and we've got to come up with a new plan. So,
yeah, and
I'd like to hear from some other board members, though.
If I could just
heard from Bob.
Yeah, I just want to address the issue that you raised, though, about why I'm thinking the way I am. The world has changed since then, and the other issue that I had is that, I do think it's our job as the board to look at it and say, okay, if there's August and there's November, and if we come forward and ask at a lower amount in November, that makes sense, right? We're still allowing our community to make the decision. Now, like Julie raised, we're riding a high right now, but when we go to the community and they look at us and say, are you guys living on cloud nine, or are you living in our world here? So I think that, I want to protect, our image and our perception of how people see us. I want to be respectful to the community, and when we do make that ask, I want to make sure that, we're doing our job to make sure that we're putting our district in a good place, where we think that we're going to have that opportunity for a large amount of people to be able to vote and weigh in on the decision and make the decision. Because if we don't pass it in August, what do we do? Turn around and say, let's put it on November, or go to May, or do we wait? So I disagree. That I do think that's why it comes before us for vote, right? It wouldn't come to the Board of Trustees for a vote, as board members were entrusted by the community to make these decisions. If it wasn't for us to decide, then why are we even voting on it? I don't follow the logic, but that's just.
Well, the only reason that we have anything to vote on is because we agreed that we should hold an election in May because of the coronavirus, and so that changed into a new fiscal year, which forces us to change the verbiage relative to the mills. That's what has to be voted on. So, I guess I really think it's
voted on it. It wasn't unanimous. It wasn't a unanimous vote, though. I'll add as well. So.
But it was it was enough votes.
Right.
It was, but there's.
But it did pass. John Paul, can we hear from some other board members where we understand what you feel, and I think I've been clear, and I would like to hear what other board members are thinking.
Thank you. I've been clear as well.
I guess that's you and me, Mike. You want to go first?
Yeah, so in my experience, people reward good behavior. So I guess I have a hard time saying that people are like, wow, Waterford Schools have been really the backbone of this community in a really trying time, but we're not going to give them what they need. That doesn't follow on my view here, which is to say they see that the schools here have been the backbone. They've served, I think for many community members, they never thought that schools could play this important role at this particular time. And so they're going to look and they're going to say, the CS Bond, they're going to say, hey, if they're doing that and what they have now, we're going to reward them with this. It seems to me we let them decide. We ride that wave of high, and it seems to me too, we know that Waterford Schools is one of the biggest employers, if not the biggest employer of people in the township. So people also recognize in a time where people might be suffering economically that this is also an investment in the community, people who live here. So it just makes sense for me to press forward and let people decide on it.
All good points, I think, by everybody. You know, for myself, I think, Scott, you know, Mike, you know, from the beginning, I was hesitant about it. When Scott first met with me at Panera, I said, oh boy, I don't know if it's a good time. We just asked for $100 million 3 years ago. Now we're asking for $150 million. So I can't say I was for it. Once the board voted for it and said we're doing it, at that point I said, okay, that's the ultimate thing. The board voted for it. Now I support it and promote it, and we move forward with it. That being said, like so many have said, the world is a completely different place now. Completely different place. Talked about unemployment. We've talked about how many people have lost their jobs. They're going to have to defer mortgage payments. And I think part of being a school board member is we do have to look out, you know, what we think is the best interest of the district. And part of me thinks, would we have a better chance of going for less than more? You know, is there a 80% chance that if we went for $70 million, we pass compared to a 20%, $150 million? And I don't know that. There's no data for that. But I certainly agree that right now our district is really thought of highly in this community. Even a lot of the naysayers that we have had in the past, that no matter what we do, they give us help. And right now I see those people just talking good, so much good about our district and about the people who work for this district. So I think we would have huge support right now, at least for our district. But when it also comes to dollars, that people it's their dollars. If they're unemployed and they're behind on their mortgage and they're struggling to buy food, is it the best time to say, hey, give us $150 million? I just don't know. I know we talked about, what Bill said, can't change the project scope, and Bill, if anybody would know. But again, these are unprecedented times. We weren't going to be able to change an election date, and we did. I think right now, things that have happened in the past that you couldn't do or could do are opposite because of what's happening in our world. So I think, I don't know. I agree kind of with Joan, and I like the point of, hey, let the people decide. If they say yes, then it's yes. But if they say no, we'll no, not to go that. But at the same time, if we feel that maybe we can get a lower amount and have it passed in August, then and say to the community, look, we know times are tough. We were going to go for $150 million, and now we've lowered it because of everything that's happened in our world and in the economy. I think that would be a good thing for this district as well. Say that
we can't do that in August, Bob.
Well, again, no guarantees.
I'm just saying we can't go for a lower amount in August. I just want to make sure you got that point. We cannot do that in August.
You're guaranteed factually with that.
Yes.
That's what Phil said several times.
So, all right, so it would be November. I mean, and it's just, again, it's, I think it's gonna, I told Scott from day one, Scott, you'll remember, Mike, we've had several conversations. From the very first day I met with Scott at Panera, when he first told me, and every meeting after that, I said, I think it's going to be a very tough election to get passed. It's going to be very, very close. And then when we had the company who's experts on bonds and came out and told us, don't do your bond, you have a less chance of it passing than it is passing. Yet we still went forward with it. And so again, I said, okay, the board voted. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to promote it and push push like heck to make it pass, but again, things have changed. Everything has changed in our world, something not one of us have ever had to see or face or have this happen, and I think we need to think long and hard. The right thing to do is still to ask our community for $150 million of their money come August.
Oh, I do want to add one thing, and it's really relative to the coronavirus and the data that we're seeing, and I've been graphing it and charting it, and I know like a lot of you, I'm certainly not an epidemiologist, but the thought is that come summertime, it will start to wane, but that it's going to resurge in the fall, and then we're really going to be back into this in the fall. And so you're basically, if we talk November, and believe me, I'm not saying this to be a sensationalist, but it's one other thing to consider, that August is the summer. To be consistent, and so people might be, I'm thinking about the stock market, which I'm also following. You know, it's like, you have to gauge public perception there. I don't know that November is going to be any better than right now, but there's a sense that August will be, based on just environmentally speaking on where the virus is, but it is supposed to resurge in the fall again. So,
just my comment on that is, I don't necessarily think it's the virus per se of when it's hitting and when it's strongest, the effects, the long-lasting effects that are in place, even if the virus numbers go down.
Agreed.
In summer, we're still going to have a bad economy because people are.
But it will have dragged on further in November than it will in August. With my
right now, are shuttered. You know, I mean, it's hard to even get takeout right now. I mean, you drive around Waterford, and all you basically see open is the grocery stores. So this is going to have a long-lasting effect, just like the Great Recession and the housing crash did. It could likely be years. And so I think that the fact that the coronavirus cases may go down, and if we all stay in our homes, that can happen. I think it's irrelevant to really where the economy is going to be at short term, because it's maybe a long-term situation.
At the end of the day, John Paul, I really agree when he said that elections are about perception, and we have the perception, we have momentum. So let the voters decide, and this is going to set us up to say, look at all that we've done. People reward that, and to say that this is also, I mean, $150 million is one number, but at the end of the day, we're asking people to pay the same. Pay the same. We've got the perception. This is going to set us up for 10 years or more of financial stability.
I get it, and I kind of equate it to the idea that it's like we all want that goodwill and we got it, but you know, like my kid's childcare, I'm still paying for childcare right now and I'm not using it because she can't go to childcare because they closed it down. But I'm helping and I'm paying because I want for teachers to be able to still make money. But there's going to be a point, Mike, where I'm going to say I got to look out for my own family first, right? And I need to have money in my account. So though I got goodwill for you, and I love you, I gotta choose my family first.
But part of caring for your family is going to make sure that you're sending your kids to safe and secure schools and support learning.
I get it.
And two, again, like if we're the largest employer of people within the township, people recognize that this is an investment in the township for people who live here.
You know, I get it, you know, but it's, you know, I think my disagreement is that, you know, at the end of the day, and we've all lived through the Great Recession of 2008 to 2011, you know, it was tough times, and many of us had to make these decisions on what we were going to do, and at the end of the day, feeding your family and having a house over your roof over your head is going to come first, and, you know, so I think we put ourselves in a difficult position. Thank you.
Well, I don't know that we have direction now, because I'm not sure. We've already approved that we're going to put the bond on the ballot. We already have the language all approved, and now we have to modify the language, but we're looking now at derailing all of that, and I'm very discouraged. This is language that we're talking about, and it feels like we've taken an opportunity to reopen all of these same discussions that we've already decided in board votes. So what are we supposed to do now?
It's so much more than that, though. I mean, it really is. It's so much more than that. I mean, there was a point in time when we had no money in our fund balance. I mean, I can't even tell you how many neighbors I lost to foreclosure. And when all of that happened, how many kids we lost. If we need money for roofs, or we need money for, I get that it's not, maybe it's not, the best thing that we just put a roof on it and we wait 2 years. I totally get that. But how I look at it right now is we have some things that need to be done right now that we need money for. There's other things like the early childhood center. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Some other things that would be fantastic, but we have some urgent needs right now. If those urgent, we have to pull from our fund balance. So if we have a number that $75,000, $80,000 to fix these things that we need right now, that we have to have, because we don't want to be back down to a $1 million fund balance. I think that it's just easier to put that out there. Just that I, as a person, as a everything, I would support that even if I was broke and not doing well, because I would want the district to go forward. That's the only thing that I struggle with, because what happens if for some reason and everybody says no, but we need this money. So now we're taking it out of this fund balance that we scraped and teachers didn't get raises and people didn't get money to put this money together into this fund balance, and now we have to tap it all out. That's my.
Well, that's why I said we would have to regroup then. I just think, I don't know if there's a big difference between, I think what I'm hearing is that we have two options based on what board members are advocating for. One is to go forward as planned in August for $150 million. And the second one, if it's even possible based on the timing, is to go for a lesser amount in November. But I think that if I'm hearing everyone correctly, November, the economy is going to be worse in November and less likely to pass in November than it is in August. So I'm not sure, and I understand we want to get what we need, but I think either way we have pros and cons on both sides, and nobody has a crystal ball. So I'm not sure how November for a lesser amount is going to be better than our original plan for August.
I think my point was that if we ask for a lesser amount in November, that's going to be the difference. That's going to be.
But if the economic.
Well, let me finish.
Yep. Sorry.
The idea is that the economic situation could be bad. It could be worse than it is in August. We don't know. But I think what Julie was saying, and part of what my philosophy is that if you're coming to me and saying, hey, let me get half of what we were originally going to ask you for, because we're aware of the situation that's going on right now. I still want schools for my kids, and I want my kid to, have what she needs, the maintenance and the buildings and all the kids out there. But I think it's more sellable. It's rather than $150 million at a time. And that's my thing, is that August and November we could be, likely still be in a bad situation. It could be equal, one could be worse than the other. But a lesser amount is the point that I'm advocating for, because I think at a lesser amount, we're showing the community that we're being more conservative and understanding of the situation that the country is in and that they are in, and that we're utilizing funds, the monies for what we absolutely need now to maintain and not go beyond. I mean, how would I feel as somebody who, I live in Waterford and I'm driving down the road and I see that you hear this all the time, you can't pay your teachers, but you're building Taj Mahal buildings, and that's not our district, that's all districts. But people don't understand the funding sources, right? So the idea and the perception is people say, well, we're in a horrible economy and they're building this big building, down the street. And so I think that by us asking for a lesser amount, it makes the community more understanding and willing to want to help.
But you understand it doesn't change how much they're going to pay, right?
Who's going to pay?
Only an optic. It's only
I know. perception
Is
is
that
reality.
really worth, I understand, but is that really, when we're supposed to be here advocating for the Waterford School District, that is just an optic. It is not a real thing that you're offering them, it's an optic.
But I think we are advocating for the Waterford School District by looking at the idea of moving forward with a lesser amount is going to be more digestible for the community, right?
But do they even know that it's a lesser amount? I mean, you're assuming.
If you look about $150 million versus $80 million, it looks better, right? And I get what you're talking about because it doesn't change the economics of it, but when people look at that on a ballot, they're going to say, okay, that's a more digestible, it's a more conservative approach. And I'm just advocating for the idea that I want to make sure that we're not in a situation where we're using general fund dollars to cover bond money.
And none of us want to, but that's why I think we should reassess after. I just think you're doing this for optics, and most people aren't even going to be aware of those optics. They aren't even aware that we were originally looking at 150 million and that we dropped it to whatever that number is. And by November, the economy, if it's going to get bad, it's going to be worse. We won't be riding this high. So I know we've all talked about our concerns, but there is no way that I feel like going in November is going to be better for the Waterford School District than the plan we currently have.
I think, John Paul, at the end of the day, when you said that people have to make a decision about feeding their kids or keeping a roof over their head, the intensity of that will be much more apparent in November than it will be.
Right. That's right.
I don't think any of us know that. There is no, like Joan said, there is no crystal ball, and we don't know that in November.
But how will it be better than August?
I don't know. How do you know it'll be worse? How do you know it'll be worse?
We know that November is a worse time for an election.
Right.
Because you have two presidential candidates going against each other, you have a lot more negativity at the poll. Again, this is why we shot for the earlier date, is because when you got to put something on the ballot, you want it to pass. So you go for the best opportunity. November is an absolute horrible time to get anything passed because you have two different sides, the Republican, Democratic, however, good, bad thing, yin yang, but people feel negative. So people are voting against things, not for things. And when you are the last person on the ballot, you will not pass. November is a horrible time for an election if you want something to pass. This isn't my opinion, these are the facts. You put it on earlier. You want to build off of what we have built, positivity. You lose it in November. If you want to scrap it completely, and we go back to a March election.
A May,
we wouldn't have the money until next year. We've already lost it for this year. To put it on, I will not vote for a November election. You can't. It's a wrong thing to do. If you're asking to put less money on, people have no clue that you ask for more and now you're asking for less. It isn't like we're going to take all this money in at one time. We are going to get it as the tax rate allows us to get it.
Right.
If we lost it the first time, when we get it back in 8 or 10, whatever that election was, and it took us 10 years to collect our money. The last one we collected in a few years. It's how the economy goes. We're not going to put anyone out of business. You're only charged for what we can afford, basically. It's simple. It's common sense, in my opinion.
Part of my concern here was if we can't apply the same logic to November, then we can't apply that logic here. So if we can't say we don't know how it's going to turn out in November, then we certainly don't know how it's going to turn out.
November is a terrible election cycle. It's not where you put a ballot proposal. No one puts a ballot proposal that they want to pass in November. There's too much negativity. You have too many people that don't have a clue of what they're voting for, and it's just a bad time to do it. You put it on in August. We have August. We moved it from the May to the August. We've done what we can for the people. As Joan and John Paul have pointed out, let the people decide. If it doesn't pass, we come back at the March.
And I agree with the idea, though, before is what we talked about was the same argument was made months ago when we were talking about possibly putting it on in August. The idea everybody was saying is if we would fail because nobody is involved with the schools in August. It's the summertime. This would be, political summertime.
Maybe what's preferable.
Let me finish if I could. So, and then we come to the November election and putting something on a November election. This is the best situation. You know, we're just trying to make the best decision that we can for the community. And my view is that moving forward, we're putting ourselves at a very strong disadvantage by asking for so much at a time in August where there's likely going to be so much hardship. The unemployment rate doubled. It doubled.
Right, so let's let the people decide, John Paul.
And let's be, but the thing is that the argument is that you have at least, you know, a group of people that think August is the time, and you have a different group, and both our points are valid, that think November might be the better time. And so I think that's where we're at. And maybe,
but how is November? November is just optics. There's no substance to that. It's just for optics.
No, I think that the idea, it's not optics, because when people...
It is.
Well, okay, but it's the same argument that Rob's making. Because Rob's saying is that nobody pays attention to what's on the bottom of the ballot in November. Well, that essentially is your chances in how things, you know, weigh out in a political election. Well, the same thing is going to hold true for moving forward in November by people looking at an $80 million or a $90 million bond versus a $150 million bond.
But John Paul, we don't gain anything. We don't gain anything if we go in November versus if we lose in August and then regroup and decide what is essential and what do we as a board want to go forward with.
Well, I think it's the same thing, because if we go in August and we lose, then we've missed that chance for November.
Because November is never, it's not going to work for November no matter what. I mean, and it's just optics. I really can't believe that you're dragging the district through this for optics. It doesn't save our taxpayers any money.
I don't appreciate that you think that, you know, it's optics, because you were one of the people advocating weeks ago, months ago, that August was the bad time because nobody's paying attention.
First of all, don't point fingers. We're all doing the best we can, and please stop doing that to me.
I'm sorry, but I have to call you out on what you just did.
Call me also. Call me out.
You just told me, well, let me finish. John, you just told me that I'm dragging the district through this. So please, that is offensive.
Because we've already voted on this, John Paul.
And I voted against it. But majority...
But the board decided.
Did not vote for it. And
the board decided. You have to support a decision of the board. That's rule number 1. MASB 101.
No, John, but this is... We're coming back before the board on another decision. I did support it. And I think what you're misconstruing, though. Because once we did pass it, I did support it. I was out there, I was talking about the bond, I was getting ready to go to PTA meetings and speak with individuals about what we were going to do. And I was behind it. Julie was behind it, right?
She did behind it.
And she didn't support it, right? But now we're in a situation where now this has got to come back before the board of bond. What you're telling me is that I have no decision, right? I'm supposed to yes or no, right? That's what I do as a board member. I'm going to vote for this or I'm going to vote against it. And what you're
decision.
I have to vote for it because this is the decision that at least you want.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's not going to save our taxpayers any money if you wait until November and reduce the dollar value. And it's for optics only, and that's not substance for the Waterford School District.
No,
I'm trying to look out for the long-term health of the Waterford School District.
And so am I. And I think it's a respect thing to the community of the fact that we're cognizant of the situation that we're currently in.
Yes, we are. And when they vote it down, if they vote it down, then we will regroup and say, we heard you, and we need to go back, and we need to figure this out. And that very likely may happen, absolutely. But we have to let our community decide that.
And I disagree with the point that people aren't going to be aware and aren't going to pay attention in November. I mean, the argument has been made that people love their schools, they care about their schools, they want to invest in the schools. So if you're telling me on one end that people care about the Waterford School District and they want to support it, but on the other end you're telling me that they're not going to pay attention to us in November and they're not going to vote for it. If they love us, they will go to the polls, they will vote for it, and they will support it, and they'll support it in a way that they're saying that we support the fact that you actually are being conservative in the amount that you're asking for, and we respect that.
But you just said too that the economics will make them think otherwise.
No, I said that the amount of what we're putting forth is going to make them think, and
time or the date. Like that's where we end up. Follow that logic out, and then at the end of the day, when we have the perception, which you have rightfully said is what wins elections, then we should just let it go.
Then let's go to November, because in November the amount is when I say percentage.
But you can't have it both ways. You can't say that people's economics, okay, make them both in one way, which is your view. You say that people's economic situation will have them view this bond negatively.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So so that's going to happen either way, and let's let them go now. When we have what you also say is what wins election, the perception. In August, we have this, we go out and we sell it, and we do what we do. People recognize that this is an investment. In times of downturn, people need schools, want schools, and this is an investment. So let's let the people decide that.
But I think what I'm saying is in November, we're showing people that we're respectful of their situation and asking for a lower amount. And if people love our schools, they're going to go down, they're going to read that ballot language and say 80 million or 90 million or whatever it would be instead of 150 million. And I think they're going to be more supportive of it at that point. And that's just my thought. You can agree to disagree.
Well, just to follow it up though, so you're claiming that still, if people's economic situation is worse off in November and they still love the schools, then they'll vote for it in November?
Yeah, at a lesser amount. But it goes back to my logic that I talked about earlier. I will support you as long as what you're asking for is reasonable, right? When my kid's daycare is asking me to pay full price, to a certain point I'll continue to do that. But there's going to be a certain point where I want you to diminish that amount that I'm paying because I'm not using the service. And this is just the analogy here. So what I'm saying is that if we go to people in November and they love and support our schools, but do they love and support our schools enough to say $150 million, and that's a lot of money, and I'm near foreclosure, or I'm in deferments on my bank loan? Or do they look at it and say $80 million? That seems pretty reasonable, right? I'm in deferment on my bank loans, but I think $80 million is a reasonable price. So I think
you're giving them too much credit.
Yeah,
and I don't mean that.
I believe them a lot of credit. I give them a lot of credit.
If it hurts for them at 80 million, it hurts for them at 150 million. And the truth of the matter is, it's not going to cost them any more either way. So what you're saying is that optic matters to you more. And the fact of the matter is, if it hurts them at 80 million, if it hurts them at 150 million, it's going to hurt them at 80 million. Yeah. Absolutely the same thing. And the fact of the matter is, both numbers don't cost them any more. So why would we not do what we're trying to do here in August? It's illogical.
I mean, we guys could have to agree to disagree, because I mean, this is where we stand. I guess maybe we take a temperature of the board and see what they think. Do they want Bill to move forward with a plan B of a November election and still we'll continue to proceed on with plan A still? Or, we just take a vote? I don't want to be in a situation where we get to this April date 2 weeks from now and we vote on it and we're not in a situation where we pass it. So I'm just trying to think ahead here and be proactive.
So you want Bill to spend more time on this election thing instead of trying to get our budget together? This has to pass in August, or you skip it. You blow it off. If it doesn't pass in August, we blow it off. There is no November election. You
right.
Go on to the March or May, and we look at it then. Bill has a couple of things going. I'm hoping, I'm trying to balance our budget. We don't know what next year's our foundation is going to be. We have just lost a quarter, probably, of what our tax revenue is. Under Proposal 8, that is our funding for our schools. Without that funding, we're screwed. We have to look at that aspect of it. We are looking at some terrible, terrible times. Let's try to get our budget. Put it before the people. As Joan has pointed out magnificently, put it before the people. If the people don't like it, scrap it. We will come back later. We will go into whatever program we have, but we have to keep moving forward.
I agree. We got to keep moving forward. I agree. We got to keep moving forward, but I think we got to keep moving forward.
But you in every corner, John Paul. You have to go. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this.
But I'm one board member here, so I would like maybe Scott can give us a little bit of insight into what you think the direction should be, or we take a poll of the board to see how they want to proceed. I'm just stating my view. You can say that I don't like, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to be proactive and think forward for our community.
You're trying to think. Thank you.
Can I just say one?
Talking to the mic.
Can't hear you. Julie, can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You hear me now?
Okay. The only thing I want to say is, the money thing, it's like your neighbor asking you for $1,000 to fix his roof. I'll give you $1,000 because you need the roof over your head and you don't get it to leak on you. But I'm not going to give you $10,000 on because we're all short. That being said, given all of the classes I've been to, that being said, I am going to accept the fact on this, and it was the majority, and I'm going to vote to allow the people to decide in August. However, I seriously, whether I need to have a conversation with you, Mike, or have a conversation with you, Scott, or probably with Scott, I seriously think that we need to discuss and what would happen should the bond not pass.
Agreed. We agree, Julie.
I mean, we need a long-term plan. If the plan goes through, then we're good. We can fix the stuff. But I do not want to pull from that fund. I do not want to be able to give our teachers money. I don't want to be in a predicament.
Right, but I understand that the process of the bond, again, we have a millage rate that you cannot go above. So if you ask for $1,000, it cannot go up to $10,000. All we did is $1,000 because of the proposal. Because you cannot get above a rate. You cannot go above that, so you're not going to be taking anything above and beyond. You're going to keep it at a straight level. You are not going to go into a bigger hole. You have a straight set cost. So it's not like, oh, it's going to cost me $10,000 when it should only cost me $1,000, because the bond rate is set, the millage rate is set, and you cannot go into a hole per se. Again, I think it was pointed out earlier that if the difference is the $20 or $30 per year, basically. Again, it's 20, 50, whatever. It's a nominal amount, but it is an amount. I don't want to say $50 is a couple of bucks. It is, but again, it isn't like we're going to go into a big hole. It's all of a sudden going to cost you more. We have a millage rate we cannot go above, so it keeps everyone in our township safe.
Right. But Julie, your point is really well taken. We do want, if it doesn't pass, we need to hunker down and we need to take a long, hard look at it.
I think we need to do that before August, because don't we have projects coming up this summer?
Right. So I see Bill on the back phone. So I'll talk about. We have been conservative, and we've pulled back on a couple of projects. I know Bill will talk about that. But we wanted to be thoughtful going into this. Not only just remember that we were going to start school early, and I think Bill knew he was pushing his team. So we pulled back a little bit, Bill, right on projects. So we had some options. Julie was asking about that, Bill.
I was trying to find out some timeline here. Pulling back on projects, I mean, as far as what the current bond, you mean?
Yes. So we pulled back a little bit this summer to give us some options.
Yeah, but it still doesn't change that we have to do Stefanski's got to have a new boiler. It has to have a new roof. We still have to finish, obviously, Schoolcraft, because we started this summer. We're going to, the board's already authorized Schoolcraft renovations and all of the 3 elementary renovations, that the interior work to wrap up phase 2 of Beaumont, Cooley, and Grayson Elementary. As far as options on the other items, we're sort of waiting to see, to make sure that once we get into the foundation of Schoolcraft and making sure that everything is okay there, I don't want to commit to anything because we don't know what we may run into. That's right. When you get close to the bottom of the money, you don't want to overextend yourself, because then you would use general fund dollars. And frankly, I mean, I can't speak for the board, but I refuse to do that, or at least recommend it. So we're just going to be very cautious of how we move forward. But there are more projects on the table than there is money. right now, and none of it is fluff. It's all straightforward projects. These are things that need to be done. And but can I maybe just sort of just cut to the chase a little bit? What I'm hearing and where we got to go is I hear that we have 3 board members that are not going to authorize us to go in August, and I have 3 board members that say that they don't support a November.
I think that would be 4-2.
I think that is
You were on
not
the
true.
phone, Bill. It changed.
Can you clarify though your stance? So I heard you say that you would support August, but what was your condition?
I didn't have a condition. It's just it seems like now I'm like in the middle. I always am, so I just don't. But my thing is I will respect the fact that even though I didn't vote for it, that according to the board rules, it went through, and we were going to do the bond, and it was a $150 million bond, and we all agreed that we're going to take it through to August. But I really, really, really like to have a serious conversation, as you would say, a plan B. That doesn't go through, fixing what needs to be fixed, and we're not going to get in an issue where we have to pull from the fund balance. If I don't know, I feel like I don't even know what projects are. I mean, interiors is a piece, whatever. But, are we going to make sure that all of the roofs are fixed so they're not leaking? Are we going to make sure that our kids have heat in the building? I mean, are we going to make sure the important stuff's done just in case August doesn't happen?
Is that something that we can do? Have that plan in place? That if it doesn't pass in August, that we know to answer Julie's question or her statement?
Well, okay, so let's back up on the timeline here. So with the $100 million, we still have projects for this summer and next summer, and so we do have backup money if, say, a boiler goes out and we have to do something in the emergency. Here's where I need where passing the bond is probably more important, is having the bond passed so that I can go ahead and start committing to other projects that we know need to happen. Rather, maybe the roof isn't, I can get through with another year with the roof, knowing that, hey, I'm going to sell bonds a few years from now. I can go ahead and fix that roof. I feel, we have the backup because the voters have approved us to be able to do those future projects. If I don't have that authorization from the board and the voters, then it complicates things of what we commit to and what we do and what we don't do with existing bonds.
Understood. I think that's actually what Julie was saying.
Yep.
That we want to be able to understand if it doesn't pass in August, what might we be doing a little differently with the existing bond dollars, if anything. I know we also have to spend the existing bond dollars, which is something I don't know if everybody knows. We don't get to drag them out indefinitely. We can't just put them in a savings account, so that makes it a little harder too. I didn't actually know that until a couple months ago when I was talking to Bill. So, but yeah, I think more discussion would definitely be required, and as well as when we go out and what do we go out for if it doesn't pass.
I think Julie has a great plan.
Plan for the worst.
Right.
When does that discussion happen?
John Paul,
when does that discussion happen? Is what I was just for a general timeline.
That's a Scott question. I mean,
that's what I'm asking. Scott,
in terms of projects?
Yeah. Let's say when we start thinking about, are we thinking about this before August, or are we waiting until see what happens in August and then having that discussion?
No, we've committed to what we're going to do this summer.
Because the plans and those things are already in place.
Right. And then, but we have contingencies and we have unallocated, well, we want to do some other things, but we have amounts just waiting to see how Schoolcraft goes. I want to see how the water retention system goes in. I want to see that the footing's going fine for the gym. Once we know that everything is okay and we're starting to move blocks up and we've got foundation in and there's no more questions about the soil conditions, that'll give us a little bit better perspective of what we can do the next year. parking lot is not priority over, say, the Stefanski boiler, of course, you know, or something like that. So we can make some option and choices here, but we need to see where we're at after this summer, towards the end of the summer, where we know what the cost of the school prep project ultimately is going to be.
I do think it's important to one thing. So, I completely respect the conversation because we bring you the plan that we think is best, and then the board makes the decision on this. I do want to remind you, two things that I think has been charged to me as the superintendent and also the cabinet are academic scores and retaining teachers. And of course, all of you have spoken about wanting to protect the general funds so we can pay our staff. The other piece, I'll just remind you, the Early Childhood Center and growing that program and having those options is critically important. I would say that as your superintendent to build for the future, for when perhaps I will not even be here any longer, but many of our kids coming in and need that extra support. And so we see the districts around us building these programs. And we do believe, I do have to still believe, once the economy improves, maybe even before that the governor will continue with her commitment to continue to put dollars behind GSRP, behind early childhood. We want to have some type of revision to build on to that. So it seems like a big ask, and that is a part of the $150 million. But I would have to say that's something we do take to our community. I know it's tough, and they may not understand it, but I think we do, knowing that kids need that extra foundation, that extra support, if we want to close the gap on some of our achievement scores. And again, we're laying that foundation. We may not all be here to see that, but we know that research shows that that foundation is critically important. And I think that would be part of the things that we would talk to people about. Why are you going for 150? The last time it was 100. Why are you doing this and that? And I think that's part of the story.
So team, I want to collect our thoughts here. Thank you everyone. That's a really great discussion. Are we okay? Move on.
I appreciate the discussion.
I do as well.
I appreciate that, everybody. Thank you.
Are we okay, Bill? Are you okay right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna take this step, so we're just gonna move forward with on the 16th with the preliminary application for a vote at that point in time, correct?
Yep, that's my understanding. And in the next couple of weeks here, we'll also start to talk about sort of contingency plans and what those might look like. And Julie's very smart recommendation. So right now we'll go forward with the proposed timeline.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Now, thank you everyone for a great discussion. Let's move on to superintendent recommendation, agenda item number 10. Treasurer Sutherland.
Yes, thank you. Superintendent recommendation 82-19-20, the 2019-20 online learning devices. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the purchase of 500 ACER travel mates from CDW-G in the amount of $103,760. The funding is Title IV reallocation and general fund, and I so move.
Support. The motion has been moved and supported. Are there any comments or questions?
One question. I see part of the money is out of the general fund. Could we not use some of the bond money that we have for this and keep the general fund for stuff that we can't use bond money for, or no?
Well, I guess this would be two-part. Maybe two of us can answer that. One is we have grant dollars for it, and I let Lisa speak to some parts of this. The other part is as we're having this other discussion as far as saving the bond dollars for other purposes, purposes. Okay. If we can maximize as much out of a grant dollar or the general fund, and we have it in the budget right now for it, so we're general fund wise, so we're okay.
Right. The vast majority, about $70,000, is coming from the grant. The other is coming from budgets that already exist, but there are things that we've been able to save because we've not been in school. So there are some funds available just from budgets that already exist that we can recapture for this.
Wonderful, thank you.
I just appreciate the answer to the questions. I think that was thorough in allowing us to have better understanding. And I do think this is something that's really needed in our community. I think I've seen a lot of people passing out lunches saying they didn't have access. So I know we're working on the internet piece, and hopefully we can get that. But this is definitely a start to helping to make sure we bridge that. That digital divide, that you talked about, Lisa, or that an equitable piece that we face as a district. So, it's not everything that we need right now, but it's a start for sure, and it's going to get us, on the path of getting kids that education in these difficult situations. Again, I just iterate too, looking at the hard copy packets too, as well as another way to supplement some of it. But yeah, thanks for moving on this quick.
Thanks for Darren for finding them. They were not easy to find.
Thanks, Darren.
Nice job, Darren. Thank you.
Can I ask one more? And maybe you said this, and if you did, I apologize. Do we know when we'll get these and when these could potentially be in kids' hands to start using?
Darren, you wanna?
Yeah, I will. We are hoping that they're going to hit our docks sometime next week. For safety purposes, we want them to sit for a few days before we inventory them, and then we're going to be working with a survey that's going to go out and teachers to really identify the students that are in most need of those devices immediately. Can I put in a plug here? Bob, you bring up a good question and an opportunity. I believe that in the coming months, education is going to see a shift, and we have a digital divide here. I don't know if one-to-one is the answer, but we do know that we've got to be able to provide more devices for kids and hotspots and whatever that is. Bond dollars can support those things. So again, this is another direct reason to have bond dollars to do that. And of course, you've got to match that up with the depreciation and those types of things. But again, we do need to do some different things here. I know the governor even talked today about some districts will be able to do things that others will not. And that's why she wanted to put in some of this, equalized funding that she may not be able to get to. But that's where we need to go. But regardless, as a district, this will force us to think a little bit differently and to prioritize how we're getting devices in the kids' hands. How are we going to continue to connect with them? I mean, down the road, wouldn't it be nice, maybe not for kids, but we would continue instruction on snow days. They don't want to hear that. But I think that's something that we need to look at. And this team has already begun doing that. I was so pleased with Lisa and Darren. They were right on this when they thought, boy, this might go till the end of the school year, and we knew that we had to close the gap in doing something. So again, kudos to them.
Just to kind of piggyback on that, Scott, and I was going to add this actually in the same discussion. My neighbor across the street teaches in West Bloomfield, and she said, Waterford, you don't have a one-to-one, and I said no, and she said, well, come borrow some because we have extras. So I first of all didn't know that West Bloomfield had one-to-one. I know.
We can call tomorrow.
Who can we talk to? Exactly. Who can we talk to? And by the way, we've got a shit ton of our kids too. Oh, sorry, but yeah. A lot of us.
Give us the kids back.
Sorry about that, guys. Sorry, that's.
We have a beep button here, Mike, with a 3-second delay.
No, I totally forgot. I'm so sorry. That's so bad.
Thank you, Mark.
That's for me.
Super passionate about water schools. That's my mistake. My apology. Oh, sorry.
And if he comes.
Any other comments or questions here?
He's going to jump back from you because that's what the LC.
Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor of the proposal, please signify by saying yay.
Yay!
Everyone will be around.
All those not in favor signify by nay. Motion passes 6-0.
I'll call as soon as.
All right, everyone. We've reached the end of our meeting here. Thank you That was terrific. Thank you, all of you for your hard work. All of you for your hard work for this discussion tonight.
Well, Tony's here right now. Let me let him look at the dog.
Thank you. And have a great rest of the evening. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
I'm filming.
Thank you. Nice meeting.
Oh, it's school board. Oh, it's over.